Hello and welcome to the Bookyard. I'm Sam.
And I'm Kai.
This week is our first episode. Today we're going to introduce ourselves and talk a little bit about our reading origin stories. Kai, do you want to start?
Only if I can tell you a little fun fact about myself.
I'm ready.
Amazing. So this fun fact, when I was in 4th grade, I don't know about you, but I was a BuzzFeed girly. I learned everything from BuzzFeed YouTube videos. And they had this thing where it was like a hack to pose for pictures. You would say prune and then leave your lips as they were. And it was supposed to like make you look pouty kissy lip really good. So between like 4th and 6th grade, I had a couple of friends and we would all be like prune and then we'd pose.
I love that. I wish I would have been there.
No, you don't. It was awful. Okay, I truly enjoyed reading and in 3rd grade up until about 6th grade. And then I kind of hit that age where I thought I was just way too cool for reading. I know that that wasn't really your story, Sam, but I thought I was way too cool for reading. But before then, when I created my first Instagram in 4th grade, my Instagram handle was Harry Potter Nerd 09. I absolutely loved Harry Potter and I would read Wattpad, but I'm not one of the Draco girls, so it was kind of hard to find Wattpad that wasn't that, I'm gonna be honest. I was also 9, so
So a little early for the Draco.
yeah. But then in 8th grade, obviously, I felt like I was so cool and reading was stupid. And I really didn't start reading again until I started a new job where I was sitting at a desk all day and they were pretty chill about things. So I was like, I need to figure out some sort of hobby. I did teach myself how to use a mouse with my left hand. And then I was like, I need something more useful than this. So that's why I started reading. And then I started with some book talk books. I feel like that's where a lot of people start when they first start reading again. But then I progressed. And now I read all genres. Thriller and mystery are not my strong suits, but I love reading now. And I also did start with Sarah J. Maas, so that's kind of fun. But Sam, tell me about your reading journey.
Okay. I started reading when I was really young. When I was 3 or 4, my mom worked nights as a nurse. My dad was an electrician. So they worked kind of opposite schedules. He's a nurse now too, but he was an electrician.
I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, he was. He had his own business. But they worked opposite schedules. My mom would come home from work and she really needed to find some time to sleep. So in my house, they kind of invented this rule when I was younger where I was allowed to wake up and go to bed as early or late as I wanted. But between the hours of like 9 p.m. and 7 a.m., I needed to be in my room. So they didn't just like abandon me. They made my room into this like huge, awesome, like kids paradise. It was so cool.
That's amazing.
My mom like sewed this puppet curtain so I could like make puppet shows.
Oh my gosh.
It was amazing. There was like this tiny little walk-in closet in my room when I was younger. Obviously I was 3 or 4 at this point. But they just put all my clothes in this dresser and they cleared out my whole closet and they made it into like a little library filled with kids' books. My parents, when they would have me in my room, basically, would leave me in there and I could do whatever I wanted. They also, showing my age here, bought me a VHS player.
Awesome.
They bought me a VHS player and a TV and everything, and they bought these like educational reading videos for me, PBS series or something.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what it was called, but they would like let me watch them and I knew how to work it. Like I was a toddler, so whatever, it was fine.
Genius.
But I watched all these videos so many times that I started knowing how to read.
That's amazing.
But I watched these videos so many times that I like knew how to spell little words. And so I started reading all of the little books in my closet while I was bored. So I have never really slept very well. I would sleep for, 5 hours. It's the same now. But during that time, I would just read all of the books that I had in my closet. So I ended up reading all of them. And then I read Harry Potter, the first book, when I was 7. Honestly, I've just been a reading girl since then. I've loved to read. I also had a very fun Wattpad phase around 14 years old. I read a lot of fantasy stories and a lot of fan fiction on Wattpad.
What kind of fanfic?
So I wasn't a Draco girl.
Good.
Either. You know, I just wasn't there. I think it was that he's blonde.
We do not like blondes around here.
Yeah, give me a dark-haired, like, villain type.
Oh, yeah.
We like that.
We do.
But definitely not a Draco girl. Obviously, you know this about me because we're friends. I was a knight girl. I love knights, you know, like classic medieval knight stories. And I remember there was this book in my elementary school library. I was like 6th grade, maybe. And there was this awesome knight story, and she was amazing. And she like ended up being better than all the like men knights.
Obviously.
I loved it. So obviously inspired by that at like 14, I wrote about 6 chapters of a story about a girl named Arden.
No, you didn't.
I did. She became an apprentice to this really hot knight.
Ooh.
I was clearly in over my head because I'd never kissed anyone at that point, but I was absolutely writing steamy scenes.
Steamy. Give me like a level.
2 out of 5 chili peppers. Like it was kissing. But it gets better.
Okay.
Where for some reason, Arden and her hot knight guy were kissing in a treehouse.
Wow.
I don't know where I got the idea that knights had
Tree houses?
tree houses. I was 14.
Hey, maybe it was like a magic tree house situation.
Yeah, it could have been like a magic knight tree house, but I stopped after that because I freaked myself out. But it was a high point for my writing career.
Yeah.
Haven't gone back there since. Then after that, reading wise, I went to high school at a college prep charter school.
Yeah, you did.
Let me just tell you, my high school had a Quidditch team. It was exactly what you're imagining, but worse. Every year we had to have a like Seniors versus Teachers Quidditch team at the end of the year.
Hype. That sounds amazing.
I flat out refused to join it. I was mortified. My parents used it against me. They would say, "How's school going?" You know, in front of new people. And I'd be like, "Yeah, it's great. I'm learning this." And they'd be like, "Sam's school has a Quidditch team."
Your parents are so kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They loved me a lot. So, but yeah, at the school, apart from the Quidditch, it was a great school. I had to read a ton of classic literature. I had really amazing teachers who loved reading. Like they genuinely would read on their breaks. It was awesome. They were amazing. And it was contagious. They genuinely made me love words and stories and the lessons that they told me. It's awesome. I've loved it ever since then. I took a break for a few years during college because I felt so busy all the time. But around 2021, I started reading for fun again. Actually, at work, our friend at work introduced me to a few books and I started reading them again, and it was awesome. As for my reading stats now, I pretty much read any genre. This year, I've read a lot of fantasy and romance, and that's pretty new for me, but that's closely followed by literary fiction, science fiction, memoirs, and classics, where Kai is very much a structured reader. She makes lists and sticks to them. I'm not. I'm definitely a mood reader. This year, I've only read about 43 books. To be fair, I'm in a master's program, I'm working full time, and in my first few years of an awesome marriage.
She's a queen.
It's a lot. So books really haven't been my top tier priority. And I think that was one of my fears coming into this podcast, because we talk about books constantly. We love books. But I definitely have been a little worried that I don't read as much as some of the book talk people I see online. I'm not reading 15 books a month. It's just not realistic for me. But I do genuinely love reading, and it's a huge part of who I am. I think that there's room for all kind of readers in our community, and I think it's important that we are honest about how much we're reading, because whether you read 3 books a year or 300 books a year, I want you to be able to enjoy this podcast and have fun with us. That's what it is.
Absolutely. I totally second that. Yeah.
And then I met Kai when she interviewed at my job in June of 2023.
I had glitter in my hair, by the way.
It was a tale as old as time. I loved it. I was just a girl in her 20s reading whatever recommendation came my way, mostly at work. For some context, we work in an office setting, so people are constantly coming in and out. There's a lot of downtime between people where we can read without avoiding too much work.
It's pretty awesome how we actually started this podcast. So Sam convinced me to download this app called Storygraph.
Yeah, I have this complex where I'm constantly trying to find new ways or new things to like get my point across with reading and all the like places I go to. In 2023, I really don't know what was happening in like my personal life or whatever, but I was definitely I'm not using Goodreads anymore. I'm, not shopping at Amazon anymore. It's definitely who I am as a person. I was on a little kick there for a moment and we found Storygraph, which is a women-founded business. She's a coder and she's amazing.
She is amazing.
She adds features on there constantly. And when I signed up, I realized they did these things called buddy reads, and we have used them ever since. They've been amazing for us.
We love buddy reads. It basically just, you can do it with a friend and then you track where you're at and you can make little comments throughout the book. So at the time we were reading Throne of Glass and we loved coming up with our own theories, and Sam is really good at predicting what's going to happen next in books. So it was kind of like I think this, so she could write it down and then it would happen, but we had evidence that she had written it down.
That's true, because a few of the books we had read at the same time up until that point, I had told her, like, let me know when you get to this point because I have a thought and I have to share it with you.
And sometimes we would forget or just never talk about it. So it was a fun little way to track it. And so we started doing these buddy reads with Throne of Glass, and they were so fun. They were funny. We would sometimes quote the same thing or write the same thing on the same page. So I suggested one day, I was like, we should do a podcast for these buddy reads. This is so funny. But then Sam was like, I already have an idea for a podcast.
Also, who I am as a person. Let me just tell you, I have probably 15 domain names reserved. Just of different weird, like obscure ideas that I've wanted to do. For example, one is an idea for a publishing company for children's books. I also, when I was 25, I think, I reserved a domain name for like a blog of 5 things I wanted to do before I was 30.
You're almost there.
Girl, I've got 3 years. Well, okay. 2.5.
2.5. Wow, I never knew that you had a blog though.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you don't have it yet, but.
Yeah, I never wrote it, but it was really clear in my mind. Like I had 5 years before I was 30 and I was like, every single year I'm going to accomplish a new thing. Like my first year I was going to learn Portuguese, and my second year I was going to learn how to play the piano, and it was going to be a blog about all of that.
That's amazing. Also, I do have to add that Sam is bilingual.
Oh, yeah.
She's just a genius.
Thanks. I'm really not. My husband is from Peru, so we only speak Spanish when we're together.
Whoop, 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 whoop.
But yeah, it definitely was during one of those moments where I had a fun idea. I had an idea originally for a podcast that I was going to do with my other friend, and it was going to be called the American Melting Pod. And it was inspired by my husband. His name is Emmanuel. He was constantly asking me questions when he moved to the United States from Peru, just about things that he had never thought about, that he was excited about. He would ask me things like, why are Americans so excited about dinosaurs?
Which is one of my favorite questions that he was confused about. I think that's so funny. I've never thought about that before, but I love dinosaurs.
Me too. I think it's part of our blood.
I think so.
He also would ask me things like, why do you put chicken in a pie? Like, what's a chicken pot pie? Pies are sweet.
I'm with him on that. What is that about?
I don't know. honestly, they were all very good questions. So I had this idea I was going to start this podcast and it was going to be so funny because I would take his random questions and I would decide to research them and give him like awesome answers. So I had reserved like a domain name for it, but there was already a podcast like under the same name or a similar name. And I think it was like a music podcast. So I was just like, no, like obviously not in the cards for me, whatever. But I still had the domain name for a long time. And then probably 3 months before this conversation with Kai, I had this idea for a book podcast. And I called it The Bookyard. Basically, I called it Sam's Bookyard, I think. And it was, I wanted it to have like a really cool feeling, you know, of just talking with my friends in my backyard, doing awesome stuff and talking about books. That's all I wanted it to be. So when Kai said, we have to put these into a podcast, I was like, I've got the domain name.
And I said, say less. I was also in a big, like, I'm not doing social media right now, but Sam had a million like book related reels on Instagram that she would have to show me later. So without consulting Sam, I made our own Instagram called Kai and Sam Bookyard to, I don't know, save it and also be on Instagram again without all of the people on it. But the funny thing was Sam already had a Instagram handle saved.
I also had Instagram handles saved for all of my domain names.
So I just kind of ran with it and took over the Instagram, and Sam was like, dude, hold on. I already had one saved. And then we just kind of joked about it for a while. And then we finally were like, we're actually going to do this.
Yeah. It was probably a few months ago that we'd had this Instagram reserved for probably 6 months.
Yeah.
We were just sending memes back and forth.
It was awesome.
I was one of Kai's 2 friends on that Instagram.
The other friend was my sister.
Yeah. It was basically just an Instagram that people sent memes to Kai on.
Yeah, it was cool.
We loved it. But anyway, we decided to go full scale pretty recently. And I think it was when you said, okay, so when are we going to buy the like supplies for this podcast? Like, when are we going to do it? And I think at first I genuinely was like, yeah, let's look at microphones, you know, let's figure out what we want to do. And it was kind of a joke. Like in my brain, I was like,
really?
This is not going to happen.
This was never a joke for me.
I know. It really never is. Kai is definitely we're going to do this. We're going to run with it, and we are going to just follow some dreams.
I'm a runner. You drop a little sprinkle and I take it and run.
Yeah, absolutely. I have 1,000 ideas, and have I ever run with them? No.
I get one whim idea and I'm there.
You're there. So I really genuinely looked at microphones as a joke, and then you were like, okay, yeah. Do you want me to Venmo you?
This is so crazy. I never knew that you thought this was partly joking.
I didn't think we'd do it.
Oh my gosh.
I bought a microphone thinking, this is going to be funny. Like, let's see if something comes of this.
And then I was like, do you want to write an episode?
Yeah. And we've been here ever since.
We've been hustling. We've been making content, which also follow us on the Bookyard_pod on TikTok and Instagram. Little plug.
We're fun over there. We are really fun over there.
We are pretty fun. Speaking of fun, earlier you talked a little bit about how you wanted our podcast or this podcast idea to be like a backyard, and that's how you got Bookyard. What does your backyard look like?
To be fair, my backyard right now is nothing cool, but this is obviously a dream scenario, right?
Right. Obviously,
I've been a Pinterest girl for a long time. I have probably 50 boards dedicated to different things. And one of my favorite ones is like this backyard party atmosphere.
Ooh, like children's party or like
no,
like party?
Neither. It's, you know, the picnic vibes where you get a bunch of girls together and they all like bring a cool dish and you have like decorated to the nines and it's beautiful and you just get to hang out with a bunch of girlfriends.
Like the little like miniature tables, you have to have like a pillow to sit on the floor and like,
Ooh,
you know what I'm talking about?
we could do that.
We could with our 2 friends.
That could be part of our 3 total friend party.
Oh, yeah.
Then I just pictured, the string lights.
Yeah.
I love those string lights. It's the evening. We're all sitting there. None of us drink. So we're clearly drinking mocktails.
What about some like smoothies?
Ooh, we could do some smoothies.
What about some snow cones?
Ooh, what about some snow cones?
A little snow cone bar, maybe?
Okay. You're a pomegranate girl.
I love a pomegranate snow cone. I don't remember what you like. I'm going to guess. Pina colada.
I mean, I'm okay with a pina colada. I like normal coconut.
I was halfway there.
I'm a coconut person.
You are.
I know there aren't a lot of them around, but I love coconut.
But that's you.
Yeah. So anyway, this backyard party, we've got all of this going on. At least in my brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got the dimmed lights, beautiful strings. People are sitting on pillows. We're all talking about very cool books. And honestly, I think we could probably have one of those mom talk ball pits.
Ooh, do the moms have ball pits?
Yeah, you were telling me the other day they have these like ball pits filled up with like cream colored like balls for their kids. But obviously there are no kids.
Yeah, just us.
Because none of us have kids at this point.
Yeah.
I'd also really love it if we had those Adirondack chairs.
The what chairs?
Okay, so they're Adirondack chairs. They're very cool wooden chairs.
Uh-huh.
I'll have to show you a picture of these later.
Please.
But they're like obviously the peak of luxury. Don't ask anyone with actual money about that. In my brain, they're the peak of luxury.
Mm-hmm.
You always see those fancy camping models sitting on Adirondack chairs. They're overlooking beautiful mountain ranges.
Is it the ones that are kind of like interlocked wood that are kind of like...
Yeah, they're gorgeous.
Okay.
They're so cute and surprisingly expensive. But in my backyard where we have this podcast, it doesn't matter.
Because we're rich in this scenario.
We're rich in this scenario.
Wow.
We have more than $40.
Wow. What a life.
I love it.
That's amazing. Well, earlier you talked about your stats a little bit, and I definitely didn't. So let me talk a little bit about my stats and my reading journey.
Please do.
I know I talked a little bit about my reading journey earlier, but I didn't mention how long I've been reading. And I've only been reading for about 1.5 years now as an adult.
Yeah.
So some of my main genres are fantasy, followed by sci-fi and romance. Where I came from that book talk background, romance was pretty big. So that's kind of where I started.
Do you remember when you loaned me a book? We had just barely met.
Oh my gosh.
And we started reading together. I had just told you like, hey, I'm in the middle of ACOTAR. And you were like, let me give you a book I've got.
Guys,
do you remember what book that was?
I do. Are you wanting me to say it?
If you can admit to it, I'm there for it.
Okay, I'm thinking of 2.
You did give me 2. I read both of them.
One of them was significantly better than the other one.
Okay.
I stand by one of them being okay.
Okay.
So they're both by Colleen Hoover. Peak book talk moment. The first one that I think is fine is Confess. I think that one was still all right from what I remember. Maybe I need to reread it, but that one, I'm not too ashamed. Where my shame does come in is it ends with us.
Yeah. Yeah. That was a moment for me.
The thing is I hadn't read it yet.
That's true.
I had just heard really good things about it, and I had read other Colleen Hoover books. So I was like, this one's probably good. And I was just getting into reading, and Sam had a lot of books, and she was always bringing new ones. So I thought this would be awesome if we read this together. But she read it first. And Sam was really nice about it, and she didn't hate on it. And she was like, this was all right. And she was really kind about it. Flash forward to 2 months later when I read it, and I texted her and I was like, this is genuinely one of the worst books I've ever read.
I really didn't want to hurt your feelings.
And that is so sweet, but girl, damn.
We had just met at this point, and I was really excited that I was going to have a friend at work to read with. And so when I had got done, I was in the middle of this ACOTAR series and I was like, I know this isn't like a literary masterpiece, but I am like there for it. I'm there for it.
I didn't even finish the book. And I remember I was in the middle of reading it and I texted Sam and I was like, dude, this is awful.
Yeah.
How did you do this? And she was like, I didn't want to hurt your feelings.
I really didn't.
But in all fairness, you brought me Sarah J. Maas. I had heard of ACOTAR like once or twice, and Sam was like, I read those a couple months ago, just the first two. I'll loan it to you, and then we can finish the series together. And I was like, that's amazing. So going back to my stats, she is my most read author because in a short period of time, I read a lot of Sarah J. Maas. We haven't read Crescent City yet, but we did do Throne of Glass and ACOTAR together, and those were really fun. But she takes up a majority of the authors that I've read.
Yeah, because it's really just been this year.
Yeah, so it's been really great. But some of my reading goals coming up here is I want to try to get out in different genres. As a newer reader, I think it's great to start with fantasy and obviously sci-fi and romance, but I'm excited to kind of venture out and try some new genres.
I love that. I think next episode we're going to talk about a few of our goals.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah. We really are excited about this whole podcast journey.
We so are. Apparently me more than you in the beginning. I didn't.
Yeah.
Still really confused about that.
That's true. I really genuinely did think it was kind of a joke. I didn't think we'd do it. But now that we're here, I'm excited about it.
Booyah.
Woohoo. Anyway, the main goal of this podcast is just to create kind of a community where we can come together as if we were in our very cool backyard, get together, have fun, talk about books that we love, regardless of whether they're the world's best books.
Absolutely.
And just enjoy. I think that reading's a huge part of who we are as people, and we would love to connect with people who are like that. We want to make sure that this is a place where people can feel safe and heard, and where we're not going to tell you that your opinion is awful. We might sometimes, though.
I might think about it.
Yeah, I'll probably think it a little bit, but I probably won't tell you to your face. I'll be nice again with.
Yeah, and if your favorite book is It Ends With Us, I'm really sorry, one, that we said it, but I'm also really sorry that you haven't found a better piece of literature.
Yeah. Follow us here and we will introduce you to some really, really great books.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for listening to our first episode.
Next week, we will be talking about a very fun theory that we've made up called the MMC breakup. So that's pretty exciting. If you like today's episode, you're in luck. We release episodes every Monday, and if you're needing your fix throughout the week and it's not Monday, you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the Bookyard Pod.
Also, we're on YouTube.
We are at the Bookyard Pod as well.
Yay!
Yay!
We'll see you next week.
Bye!